So it's another wet and wild day today in Lytham St Anne's, so I thought I'd do an Ask Me Anything video. If you want to ask me any more questions then, or follow-up questions to any of these answers, then just ask away in the comments section here or send me an email, whatever you want to do. This question is from James and he says, what's your favourite tool? Well, my favourite tool by far is my hands. I use my hands for pretty much everything, all planting, things like that. I don't wear any gloves. I really like getting my hands in the soil and I really like getting them well coated with soil bacteria, and I'm not too fussy really about thoroughly washing them, so that when I'm eating stuff with my hands I am getting a bit of a dose of soil bacteria at the same time, and I kind of credit that with challenging my immune system, and as a result of that reducing the severity of the autoimmune condition that I suffer from, which is adult onset Still's disease. I don't necessarily recommend that for anybody else. It might work, it might not work, but it worked for me. However, I don't think that was what James was on about when he asked me about my favourite tool, so let's just go through some of the other favourites. And I guess the simplest of all the tools that I use when I'm not using my fingers is the dibber, which is just an old fork handle that I chopped the end off, and that works great for planting a lot of module sown things like lettuces and beetroot and things like that. If I want to sow something a bit bigger, like a brassica, which I might leave for as long as 2 months in its pot, a dibber makes a bit too small a hole for that, and it kind of compresses the soil quite a lot. So I quite use a bulb planter for that. And I've got 2 of those. I've got a small bulb planter and I've got a large one that's going to kind of handle. And I really love that, and you can see those in my Amazon store in the kind of tools section if anybody's interested in what those look like. Got a rubber rake which I really like, and that is kind of pretty much it. I don't really use very many tools. I hardly ever use a trowel, I hardly ever use a fork, I hardly ever use a spade other than just really for dealing with compost. Yeah, I'm pretty tool light really when it comes to gardening. John asks me what is my favourite season, and a difficult question to answer really, because I kind of like all the seasons for different reasons. I kind of like the quiet and relaxation of winter. I like the fact I can go out hiking a lot. I just like the fact that, you know, my pace of life just slows down no end, and I can get on with a lot of creative work, spend a lot of time in the gym, do a lot of reading, that sort of thing. I really love spring for obvious reasons. It's a favourite time for gardening, and it's just fantastic. It's not quite so good for me as it is for some other people, perhaps because I've been gardening all through winter, and it can be quite a busy time, but of course the weather is generally really lovely. It's another great time for hiking and cycling, and yeah, and it's a great level of abundance for us. I mean, probably we get most of our the biggest yield of fresh produce in spring. I kind of like the weather in summer, in the mornings and the evenings. I'm not generally quite so keen on it in the middle of the day because it can be a little bit too hot for me. But of course, again, it's a fantastic time for harvesting, so I love that. And yeah, just the lazy days of summer basically after the busyness of spring. And then autumn gets a bit busier again because we're doing all the replanting. And I love planting and I love growing seedlings, so yeah, I love autumn for those reasons. And again, it's great hiking and cycling weather, so all the seasons have their benefits really, and yeah, love them all. Philip asks, where do I get my seeds from? Well, I get them from all over the place really. I'm not particularly picky. I more think about varieties that I want to grow rather than I think about seed companies that I want to buy from. I do have a kind of a relationship with Jerry from Grow Seed. He's a good friend of mine and he sends me a lot of seeds to try, and I get a lot of my basic seeds from him and he sends me those for free, so that's really great. I get loads of seeds from other places though. I get them from Real Seeds, I get them from Seeds of Italy, I get them from More Veg, quite a lot of different places. And basically I'm just trying to source the specific varieties that I want to grow, and yeah, I don't really bother so much about where I actually get the seeds from. I find that they're all much of a muchness, and that's kind of why I like Grow Seed. They're really cheap, they're minimal packaging, they're really reliable, and Joe's a good friend of mine. Anon asks me, what do other plot holders think about me and my plot? And that kind of implies that they treat me somehow differently to every other plot holder, but they don't, I'm just another plot holder. I think you can get, maybe some people get the impression that because I'm on YouTube, that everybody knows me and I'm somehow like famous on the allotment. No, not at all. I find that very few people watch YouTube. If they do, there's plenty of other YouTube gardeners, and I'm just one of very many YouTube gardeners. And yeah, they don't treat me any different. Occasionally, I do get somebody asking to kind of have a look around the plot, but that's not very often. And I think maybe part of it is that our allotment site is kind of oriented such that there's a kind of green drive down the centre, which is where my plot is, but there's only a handful of us that have got plots down there. The vast majority of plots are on the periphery of the site, and so there's not much traffic past my plot. And all the people who go down there, they all know me anyway. We're all good friends, and you all get on really well. So yeah, I mean, I just get treated just like everybody else. Giganda asks me, what do I eat in a typical day? Well, there isn't really a typical day, I mean, it changes quite a bit over the seasons, but there is a basic pattern to the way that I eat. I like to eat very simply, so I'll kind of try and give you the basic pattern. So the basic pattern is I don't really eat very much for breakfast, if I have breakfast at all. So I generally will go to the health club or to a cafe in the morning and have a drink there, and I won't have often anything to eat until sort of 11 o'clock or something like that, perhaps. And often if I'm out cycling, hiking or something like that, that is going to be something like bacon and eggs or a bacon balm, something convenient and treaty. And then if I'm not out and about, then I'll probably have something like my homemade granola. And that would be my favourite, probably like brunch, I guess you'd call it. And that is an oats-based granola. As I say, it's homemade, and to that I add a lot of nuts and seeds and some dried fruit. And then generally the dried fruits, apples and pears from the allotment that we've dehydrated. For my evening meal, that will be sort of 3/4 of the plate will be a mix of steamed veg. Generally always steamed for me. As I say, I just eat a very simple diet, and probably 12 different types of veg for that, and a small portion of meat, and ideally locally sourced, so lamb from the local salt marsh is a big favourite of mine, beef burgers from the local butchers, and organic chicken, something like that. So basically, as I say, veg with a little bit of meat. And then for my supper, I generally have a big salad in front of the TV with a Debbie, and again probably about 12 different types of fruit and veg in that. I do like a bit of fruit in my salads, and so lots of leafy greens, carrots, radishes, okra, tomatoes, a few grapes, some fresh pear, something like that. And for snacks, probably we'll have some dried fruit, a nut bar, something like that. So pretty simple diet, nothing very special. Now, I used to have a lot of smoothies, but what I found was I was just eating the same sorts of things that I'm eating in the salad meal or the steamed veg meal in my smoothie. And so I was just getting a lot of the same things. And so what I decided to do was I swapped really that smoothie for half a tablespoonful of Athletics Greens, which is a kind of powder with 30 something different ingredients in it. And the reason that I did that is over a concern that primarily I'm eating most of my fruit and veg grown in a 250 square metre patch of sandy soil. And so I'm kind of limited in terms of the variety of vitamins and minerals and the like that I'm getting by what's already in that sandy soil. And I didn't want to take that risk that had everything that I needed in it. So I decided that I would have like get 3/4 of my kind of vitamins and minerals from fresh organic fruits and veggies, and 1/4 from this kind of athletics greens powder. And so that's the approach that I took. And I do take a few supplements, so I don't really like fish or any seafood really, so I take omega-3 oils, 3 capsules of those. I take vitamin D because it's very difficult to get enough vitamin D in this country. Well, it's impossible to get it naturally unless you eat organ meats, I think. And what else do I take? Oh, a magnesium supplement. And I use Chronometer, which is an app which I log my food in, and I find that pretty instructive in terms of how to get optimum levels of all of the vitamins and minerals, and I pretty much get there most days. Choline is something that I would struggle to get if I didn't have a couple of eggs a day, and that's bacon and eggs, quite like that. So yeah, that's a good source of eggs. And otherwise I'll have something like Yorkshire puddings, which are a good source of eggs, or an egg custard or something like that. But eggs, yeah, a pretty important part of my diet as well. Petite Wheat asks me what is my favourite seed compost, and I recommend this in my book. I use it all the time. I literally don't use any other seed compost, and I use Levington's F2. It's not organic, but it just gives me absolutely perfectly consistent results time after time after time. Obviously I'm sowing many thousands of modules of seeds a year, and I just need consistency of results, and that's what I get from Levington F2. I don't use the one with the sand in it. I think that's only really relevant if you've got machines filling the modules. I'm pressing it in with my fingers, so I don't need the sand to make sure that it flows into the modules nice and smoothly. I have used in the past other alternatives, including organic ones. I just found the results variable, and I just can't be bothered with variable results. I just want consistently good results. I think in terms of choosing seed compost, I just go for a low nutrient one, because I want the plants to really seek out nutrients and put down good roots throughout the whole of the module. And then if the plants are in that low nutrient compost for longer than about 21 days, then I will give them a little feed with liquid seaweed fertilizer. So DN asks me what's my favourite thing to grow. Again, it's a really tricky thing to answer. I tried to answer it in my book, in the chapter What to Grow. I have got kind of like I've got a list in my database of the 250 things that I grow, and I kind of rank order those in terms of how tasty they are, how healthy they are, how prolific they are, and how difficult they are to source organically. And there's probably a few other bits and pieces in there, and that gives me a sort of rank order. But in terms of that's sort of like how I make a decision as to what I grow. But in terms of what my actual favourite things are to grow, it will probably be some of the root veggies, probably carrots. I love to grow those, but probably the thing that always comes out top for me are salad onions. They're just incredibly healthy. They're incredibly prolific. They save me a fortune because they're so expensive to buy. They taste amazing, especially they're just so crunchy and so sweet. Yeah, very hard to get organically around here. I just love salad onions. They're just so much better than main crop onions in so many ways. So yeah, that would be kind of high on my list of an unusual thing at least to grow. Little Petite Wheat again asks me what did I study at university. Well, there's a bit of a tale to this. I'll try not to go too long. So I started off doing engineering and business studies, and I really didn't like the business studies. I couldn't relate to it. I had no experience in business, so I didn't really understand what it was going on about. It was all far too abstract for me. I like things more concrete, so I decided to just do the engineering bit, and I focused on mechanical engineering. I really liked that, really enjoyed it. There's loads of maths in it. I really liked maths. Loads of design in it. I really like design, and I put up with the rest. Met Debbie on that course actually, which was a massive bonus. And so, yeah, so that's what I studied for my first degree, was mechanical engineering. I actually then went into engineering, working for British Aerospace. And I did that for a couple of years and I really didn't like it. I found it far too slow paced, just boring basically. So I got out of engineering as quickly as I could and I went into engineering computing, which was fantastic. You know, the progress was so fast. It was just so interesting. There was all the kind of engineering stuff as well, but all the computing stuff, just so much more intellectual challenge involved in that. And the part of the company that employed me to do that wanted me to go and do a master's. So I did a master's in engineering business management. And I actually got really into the management then because I understood what it was all about and it was very relevant and practical. So I really enjoyed that. I did some management consulting, still did loads of engineering, still lots of engineering computing, and then all sorts of different stuff in the computing realm. So loads of program management, loads of architecture, loads of systems design, loads of organisational design, and ended up doing a lot of strategy and management consulting and product management and executive coaching as well. So yeah, all sorts of different things, but all kind of in the engineering, business and computing kind of space. Quite a few people have asked me why I talk about eating 30 different types of fruit and veg a week, and I'm not exactly sure exactly what the source of that is. It's just a nice round number. It is approximately what we grow. I didn't do anything specific to try and get to 30. It's just, you know, roughly what we get each month of the year. 30 different types of fruit and veg. I like eating a lot of different things rather than just a few things of the same type. So I do know there's a few things that are kind of being documented. I think that quite a few people who've gone and looked at lots of different hunter-gatherer tribes have seen that they eat 2 or 3 kind of staples, but then, you know, sort of 27 extra things in small quantities. So I picked up on that and I like that idea. Tim Spector, who's a researcher in this country, he talked about a similar sort of thing. I think he wrote a book on food, diet, healthy eating and all that. And he talked about trying to eat sort of 30 different types of fruit and veg, including grains and seeds and nuts. And he was talking about the diversity of the gut bacteria and how if you eat all those different types of fibre, then each different type of bacteria in the gut eats a different type of fibre or likes a different mix of fibres. And so you get a nice diversity and that kind of correlates to health. So it's all those sorts of things, basically. I'm not exactly sure that any one source kind of gave me the idea. On a similar sort of topic, quite a few people asked me about the Walls Protocol, which is a book by Terry Walls. I did read that book. I quite liked it. I think the main thing that I got from that book was you've got to eat a huge amount of fruit and veg in order to get all the nutrients that you need at optimal levels. Yeah, so I try to eat a lot of fruit and veg. I can't eat as much as Terry Walls recommends. I think like she's talking about 9 cups or something of leafy greens. I can't eat that much leafy greens. And that's partly why I kind of supplement with that greens powder, Athletic Greens. That gives me a little bit of a boost without just eating lots of the same stuff, as I said, you know, like lots of chard and lots of spinach and lots of kale and things like that in a green smoothie. Which I say I used to do, and I've just kind of gone off smoothies, just whether that be a temporary thing or a permanent thing, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't have space for it in my day really because I don't have breakfast, and so I'll have to be adding a smoothie to one of my other meals. And I just find that I don't like to eat too much, and a great big smoothie kind of fills me up, and so then I wouldn't be able to have my granola or my evening meal or my salad for supper or something. Finally, Rose Petal asks me about the day length that I use for my grow lights. And I probably take kind of slightly unusual approach to the way that I'm growing with lights, a bit atypical. And to be honest, I'm not really sure whether it's good or bad, so you've got to take it with a pinch of salt, but this is basically my approach. What I'm trying to do is duplicate the optimum growing conditions for the crop concerned. So if you take, for example, lettuce, lettuce just grows really well in May, for example. And so I'll choose the sort of light intensity and the light levels for May, and I'll just try and duplicate those for the grow lights if I'm growing in, say, December. And so that's the approach that I take generally for everything. I'm just looking at what's the optimum time of year for growing that thing. And I do vary the light levels a little bit, because what I'm also trying to do is simulate the fact that the light levels are increasing or decreasing for that plant at that time of year. So right now I'm growing Asian greens, and Asian greens are growing best in sort of August, September and October. So they're expecting light levels to be dropping. And so that's what I'm doing. So under the grow lights, they're experiencing a slight drop each week. And by the time they get planted out, which will be the beginning of March, I will have the light levels at just above March levels. So when they get planted out in March, they'll see another drop. Then they'll start to see an increase again, but I'm hoping that they're kind of just thinking that they're in a funny autumn. And it'll take them a little bit longer to figure out that they should be going to seed. Now, I don't know whether that's going to work or not, but that's just the general approach that I'm taking. So I'm always thinking, does this plant want increasing light levels or reducing light levels, and what sort of intensity is it expecting, and what sort of day length would it get at its optimal growing period? I find that what that also means is that I don't have the grow lights on for as long as a lot of people, and I don't have them turned up to as high an intensity as other people. And as a result of that, my electricity bill is a bit lower than other people using grow lights. As I say, I don't really know. It would take a lot of experimenting to find out whether this is a good approach or a bad approach, but it seems to work for me, so I'm just going to carry on and experiment in that kind of area. So I think that's enough. My name's Steve. This is the Seaside Kitchen Garden and Allotment channel. And if you've got any more questions or follow-up questions, as I said, just ask them in the comments below or send me an email. I'll see you soon.